couple of months ago, I was in India and Uttar Pradesh. I saw all this come together. The foundation, the cooperatives, the resilience, and most importantly, the glue that held it together, the digital system. That's the ecosystem we want to replicate wherever possible. That's the ecosystem we want to steal shamelessly. Agriculture has always been central to development. But today the real issue is, the challenge is, how do you make it a driver of jobs? How do you make it a driver of income? And how do you get to food security at scale? How to grow more food, but then turn that growth into a business that produces higher incomes for smallholder farmers and more opportunity across entire economies. So let me start with the why. Over the next 10 to 15 years, about 1.2 billion young people in developing countries will come of age, but current trends suggest that only 400 million jobs will be created. And that delta, this is hundreds of millions, will either power the global economy or they will spill over into unrest and migration. That's why we think that the World Bank Group has to make job creation our central mission. Most jobs ultimately come from the private sector, but they don't all start there. Countries move along a continuum. Early on, the public sector tends to drive job creation. Over time, the private capital and entrepreneurship there in that country and from overseas tend to take the lead. And our three-pillar strategy on jobs reflects that arc. Build infrastructure and skills, create predictable regulations and governance and a business-friendly environment with the right guide rails, and back investors with risk tools that crowd in capital. So where do these jobs come from? We see potential in 5 sectors: infrastructure, agribusiness, healthcare, tourism, and value-added manufacturing. When I say infrastructure, I mean both physical and human infrastructure. Bridges, roads, airports, education, healthcare, skilling. Today we focus on agribusiness, central both to jobs and to meeting global food demand that is projected to rise more than 50% in the coming decades. Emerging markets are at the center of both of those. The developing world has the ingredients. It has land, it has sun, it has water, it has people. Africa has 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land and can boost yields on land that is already farmed. Latin America already produces enough food for well over 1 billion people, but infrastructure there is a challenge. And across Asia, smallholder farmers manage most farmland, an enormous base that we can help to lift with better technology, better finance, and better access to markets. Here's the issue. Globally, 500 million smallholder farmers produce 80% of the world's food. Yet most of them remain stuck in subsistence farming. They lack electricity, storage, training, market access. Fewer than 1 in 10 have access to commercial finance, let alone crop insurance. This opportunity has been there for decades. What's changing now is our ability to organize at scale to shape the future of food security, nutrition, growth, and employment. Last year, the World Bank Group began executing a strategy that recognized that reality. So what we have set out to do is, first, help smallholders raise productivity and scale. Second, connect them to structured value chains that lift incomes. And third, guard against exploitation so farmers aren't forced to sell land for lack of credit, for lack of insurance, or lack of market access. At the same time, we've set a target to double our agribusiness commitments to $9 billion a year by 2030, aiming to also mobilize an additional $5 billion from other sources in the private sector. Now, this is what is grounded based on what we have tested in the field and in lessons we are borrowing from others. Remember, stealing shamelessly and sharing seamlessly, that is how we will succeed together. You will hear me talk about stealing shamelessly all the time. It's not a word bankers use, but it explains exactly what we need to do. Don't reinvent the wheel each location. Feel free to copy and steal shamelessly. Today, we are looking to push this effort closer to scaled execution. The foundation that needs to exist is clear. Policy and infrastructure fixes where they matter. Clarity on land tenure, seed and sanitary standards, basics like irrigation, rural roads, storage and power for the cold chain. Focus on the small farmer who lacks inputs, lacks credit, lacks advice, lacks a dependable buyer. Producer organizations, often built by governments, entrepreneurs, or private sector players, they can connect them to suppliers, to insurers, to buyers and lenders. That gets advice, fertilizer, and working capital to the field, and it creates predictable routes to market. Once productivity and scale improve, cooperatives sell into structured offtake with SMEs or larger firms. Farmers capture more value, lenders see predictable cash flows, and incomes rise. I have seen this personally in my first job when I was a young management trainee in India working with Nestle. I saw this work with dairy farmers in the Punjab. I've seen it with the Amul cooperative in India, which transformed India from being one of the world's most milk-short countries to the #1 producer of milk in the world. This works with small farmers, but we have to make it work together. Resilience is embedded at the beginning. It is not added later. Heat-tolerant seeds, soil-matched fertilizers, rejuvenation techniques, efficient irrigation, and strong insurance and financing underpin so that a bad season doesn't become a bad year, doesn't become a bad life. Digital is the glue that holds the system together. Small AI tools and basic phones that can diagnose crop disease from a photograph, that can inform fertilizer choices, it can prompt action well ahead of a weather event and move payments securely. That data trail then becomes a credit history. Better underwriting lowers the cost of capital, lower costs, draw in more lenders. That's the virtuous loop that we want to build. This is not theory. A couple of months ago, I was in India and Uttar Pradesh. I saw all this come together. The foundation, the cooperatives, the resilience, and most importantly, the glue that held it together, the digital system. And it delivered. Proof of concept is it works, and now we need to scale it, and it is scalable. That's the ecosystem we want to replicate wherever possible. That's the ecosystem we want to steal shamelessly. But it only succeeds if government, business, and development partners row in the same direction. That is what is on display